Lauren Brooks accepted ugly assignments the way other officers accepted medals, without flinching and without asking who would notice. By the time the secure briefing ended, the folder was closed, but its contents kept moving through her mind. Anonymous complaints, vanishing statements, contractors who left without explanation, a medical officer requesting transfer after documenting injuries that did not match reports, an elite base with a glittering reputation and a culture nobody wanted examined too closely. The secretary wanted quiet confirmation. The inspector general wanted admissible truth. Lauren wanted the instant, when pretense cracked and character stood exposed. She read every page twice before sunset. The base commander had arranged a formal reception that evening for donors, politicians, and senior leaders from 3 branches. Perfect theater for disciplined hypocrisy. Lauren was instructed to arrive unannounced without insignia, aids or the shield her office normally provided. Her mission was simple: observe record and determine whether the misconduct on the installation was isolated arrogance or systemic rot. People behaved differently when they believed the powerless were watching. The real inspection was never about uniforms. It was about what surfaced when respect seemed optional. At 1900 she left the guest quarters through a side corridor, wearing a plain dark blazer, cream blouse-tailored slacks, and low black heels built for movement rather than ceremony. No ribbons, no stars, no branch pin. Only a guest lanyard at her collarbone, the sort of pass ignored by people who thought hierarchy should be visible from across a room. She carried no jewelry beyond a watch and tucked a slim notepad inside her blazer pocket. The mirror showed exactly what she needed: someone ordinary enough to dismiss and steady enough not to care. The ballroom occupied a restored hangar dressed in borrowed elegance. Crystal chandeliers glowed above steel beams. Flags from every service framed a stage where a string quartet played polished patriotic arrangements. Round tables in navy linen filled the floor. White-jacketed servers moved between officers whose medals glittered brighter than their smiles. Lauren entered quietly with a glass of water and made one slow circuit of the room. 2 captains berated a caterer over the shrimp. A major laughed when a logistics specialist brushed his sleeve, then kept her standing there while he finished a joke about enlisted people needing traffic. A lieutenant muttered that the event existed for photos, not work. Patterns emerged quickly. Senior officials received rehearsed deference. Attractive guests got charm, but the civilians were courted. Everyone else was graded at a glance. Lauren watched eyes travel from faces to clothes to badges before deciding how much courtesy to spend. One junior petty officer carrying a tray flinched each time command staff called for refills. A young woman at registration apologized to a commander who had misplaced his parking tag and spoke to her as though she had hidden it for sport. When Lauren thanked her for moving the line efficiently, the woman blinked in surprise. Small kindnesses had become anomalies here. She stopped near a pillar with a clear view of the entrance and dais. From there she could hear, without being drawn in, procurement numbers, promotion rumors, deployment bragging edited for glamour. The base sold itself well. Any visiting senator would see excellence. Any camera would capture discipline. Lauren had inspected enough commands to know some organizations survived on fear dressed as efficiency. She wrote one note tone set by middle leadership: contempt casual, bystanders compliant. Then she let the room forget she existed. A shift in the atmosphere arrived before the man himself did. Laughter sharpened near the entrance. Younger officers straightened. Lieutenant Grant Mercer came in with the confidence of a man who had never confused attention with respect. He was broad-shouldered, perfectly groomed, and decorated enough to make strangers assume substance before hearing him speak. His service dress fit like a campaign poster. The trident on his chest flashed under the chandeliers. 3 officers drifted around him like eager satellites. Mercer accepted handshakes without pausing, slapped shoulders he barely outranked, and wore humility like a costume. Lauren watched him before he noticed her. Servers stepped aside too quickly when he approached. A junior officer mispronounced his title from nerves and turned red when Mercer's friends laughed. Mercer corrected him in a voice loud enough for others to hear, then grinned as though public embarrassment were mentorship. When a woman from facilities reached between guests to retrieve an empty flute, Mercer did not move. He made her reach farther, then remarked that the help should learn invisibility. Lauren recognized the rhythm immediately. Power tested. At low stakes always grows bolder when unchallenged. Mercer's gaze swept the room once, cataloging importance. It paused on Lauren. She was alone, unadorned, and not visibly eager to impress him. That combination irritated men like Grant Mercer more than open hostility ever could. He said something to his entourage. 2 of them glanced her way and smirked. Then he changed course with the certainty of someone who believed any room could be improved by his choosing a target. He stopped in front of her, just close enough to crowd, just far enough to claim innocence. His smile held no warmth. "You look lost," he said. "This section is for invited guests." Lauren met his eyes. I was invited. He let out a soft laugh and turned his head so the others could. Were you? He looked at her blazer, her water glass, the empty space around her. Interesting, because important people usually look like they know where they belong. I do, Lauren said. That answer should have ended it. Instead, it hooked him. Mercer enjoyed resistance only when he believed he controlled the ending. He folded his arms. Let's make this easy. What's your rank, sweetheart? A few heads turned. The nearest conversations dimmed without stopping. Lauren took a sip of water and returned the glass to the tray of a passing server who seemed suddenly desperate to disappear. My invitation was cleared at the gate, she said. Mercer smiled wider, already annoyed. That wasn't the question. Then perhaps it was a necessary one. His unnecessary one reacted on cue. One lieutenant barked a laugh. Another said, "She's got attitude." Somewhere behind them a woman murmured that this should be good. Lauren kept her shoulders loose and her face unreadable. She had long ago learned that bullies feel naked when their bait fails to land. Silence forced them to keep talking, and talking made records unnecessary because arrogance became self-documenting. Mercer leaned closer. Listen carefully. There are donors' flag officers and command staff in this room. If you were somebody's +1, fine. If you wandered in because you thought this was a public mixer, that mistake ends now. I haven't staken anything, Lauren said. No? He glanced over her shoulder as if searching for the man who must have brought her. Then tell me who signed off on you. The same authority that signed off on you. That drew a low murmur. Mercer's jaw tightened for a second before he recovered. Cute, he said. You know what I think? I think you were enjoying the attention. Think you're creating it. Another laugh from the circle, thinner this time. Mercer did not like laughter he had not fully commanded. You should be careful, he said. This is a military installation. People who get clever in the wrong place can end up escorted out. Lauren looked around the ballroom, letting her gaze drift over the quartet, the tables, the officers pretending not to listen. And people who mistake authority for immunity can end up somewhere worse. For a moment the words stood between them like a blade nobody else had seen drawn. Mercer's face cooled. He decided charm had failed and cruelty would be more entertaining. All right, he said. Let's try one more time. Name, affiliation, and reason for being in my section of this event. Lauren did not move. No. The word landed quietly, and that made it heavier. Mercer stared, disbelieving. Around him, the eager smiles began to sharpen into anticipation. The room was giving him an audience. He intended to earn it. You don't get to tell me no here, he said. Everyone gets to say no to disrespect, Lauren replied. His nostrils flared. Respect is earned. So is command.
So is command.
He stepped forward and caught the lanyard hanging at her collar. Then let's see what exactly you've earned. With a violent jerk, he snapped the plastic clasp, yanked the guest badge free, and held it up like contraband. Gasps flickered from nearby tables. Lauren did not reach. Murat? Mercer glanced at the card, saw only the front guest designation, and his confidence returned at once. He tossed it into a silver trash bin beside the pillar. There, he said. Problem solved. A lieutenant to his left whistled under his breath. Someone farther back muttered, "Damn." The petty officer with the tray froze in place, eyes on the floor. Lauren's voice remained level. You just destroyed official property on a secure installation. Mercer shrugged. Then file a complaint. I might. Lauren looked straight at him. That depends how many names need to go on it. The answer should have warned any prudent officer. Mercer was not prudent. He was performing. Now. And performance needed escalation. A server passing behind him lost balance when another guest clipped her elbow. A splash of red wine struck the polished floor near Lauren's shoes. Mercer saw opportunity before anyone saw accident. He pointed to the spill. Since you were apparently determined to linger, you can make yourself useful. Get on your knees and clean that up. The words opened a pocket of silence so sudden that even the quartet seemed faint. Lauren heard one sharp inhale from the registration woman across the room. The young petty officer stared in horror. Mercer's entourage waited to see whether humiliation could be pushed one step further, without consequence. Lauren let the silence breathe. Excuse me? You heard me? You heard me? Mercer folded his. Hands behind his back, mimicking parade rest arrogance without the discipline. Either clean the mess, or I shall have security remove you from the premises. I am done entertaining civilians who think attitude counts for credentials. You're threatening to remove a cleared guest because you spilled your character all over the floor. One man choked on a laugh and tried to disguise it as a cough. Mercer heard that too. His ears reddened. Final warning. Lauren, help. His gaze a long moment, as if giving him one last chance to recognize the cliff edge under his own feet. When he offered none, She asked softly. Do you speak to all subordinates and civilians this way when senior leadership isn't looking? Mercer smiled with open contempt. Senior leadership? Results. This base delivers. That buys a lot of freedom. Freedom for what? Through nonsense. For reminding people where they stand. For making sure this place runs without every fragile ego needing a comfort briefing. He tipped his chin toward the officers nearby. Out here we do the real work. Brass flies in, shakes hands, gives speeches, and leaves. We keep the machine alive. And civilians? Lauren asked. Junior staff contractors. Whoever said? Mercer said. If they can handle blunt truth, they shouldn't be on military ground. Nobody important cares if a few low-level people feel offended. Lauren said, Nobody important? He spread his hands. Not enough to matter. There it was. Not a bad night. Not a misunderstanding. Doctrine spoken proudly. The men beside him shifted with the strange unease of people who sensed a line had been crossed, but still believed the crossing might somehow be reversible. Lauren did not rescue them from that illusion. She asked, And if your judgment is wrong? Mercer's smile returned, almost pitying. It never is. The double doors at the far end of the ballroom opened with a deep hydraulic swing louder than the music. One violinist faltered. Conversation snapped. Heads turned. Backs straightened. Through the widening doors came 4 men in formal service, each carrying the unmistakable gravity of true senior command. 4 stars shone beneath the chandeliers. They entered not like late guests, but like authority returning to its own house. Mercer turned with everyone else and snapped into crisp posture. Lauren saw the calculation flicker across his face. Inspection. Opportunity. Witnesses. Angled himself half toward the newcomers, half toward her, as if savoring the moment when his power would be publicly validated. One entourage officer whispered. Mercer silenced him with a look. The 4 generals advanced in measured steps across the ballroom floor. The room opened for them the way water opens for a prow. Their faces were unreadable. They did not glance toward the dais, the donors, or the ranking officers eager to receive them. Mercer raised his hand in a textbook, salute shoulders locked, chin high. They walked past him as though he were a decorative column. The first, General, a Marine with iron-gray hair and a scar along his jaw, led by half a pace. Beside him moved an Air Force General Lauren had briefed years earlier. Behind them came an Army commander and a Navy admiral feared for his memory. None acknowledged Mercer. None slowed. Their path aimed at one destination only. They stopped, directly in front of Lauren Brooks. In perfect unison, 4 right hands rose. Lieutenant General Brooks, the Marine said, voice cutting through the room with parade ground clarity. The salute held. Lauren returned it. Around them, silence fell so completely that the faint hum of the refrigeration units near the service doors became audible. Mercer's face emptied, not whitened. Emptied, as if every practiced response had been abruptly removed from behind his eyes. One of the lieutenants near him actually took a step backward. The petty officer with the tray looked up for the first time all evening. At ease, Lauren said. The 4 generals lowered their hands, but their posture remained formal. The Navy admiral's gaze slid past Lauren to the trash bin, then to Mercer, then back again. We arrived the moment your signal was relayed. Lauren nodded once. You were on time. Mercer swallowed so hard she saw the movement from 6 feet away. Lieutenant General? The title cracking in the middle like thin ice. Ma. There must be some misunderstanding. Lauren turned to face him fully. Her voice did not rise. It no longer needed to. No, Lieutenant Mercer. The misunderstanding belonged entirely to you. Every eye in the ballroom locked on him. He seemed to realize, perhaps for the first time in his career, that public space could become a courtroom without warning. If I had known. If you had known, Lauren said, you would have performed courtesy for rank. That is not the standard under review tonight. Nobody moved. Mercer's friends had gone motionless, trapped between habit and panic. Lauren bent, retrieved her guest badge from the bin herself, and handed it to the Navy Admiral. Chain of custody, she said. She looked back at Mercer. You asked me my rank. You asked me my rank. You asked it to diminish, not to identify. You demanded credentials while displaying none of the judgment required to exercise your own authority. You destroyed access property. You publicly degraded a cleared guest. You issued an unlawful and demeaning order. You threatened removal to conceal your misconduct. Then you openly stated that civilian dignity, junior personnel welfare, and oversight from senior leadership do not matter on this installation. Did I misquote any part of that? Mercer's mouth opened. No words came. Lauren waited. Silence can be the most exacting form of pressure. Finally, he said, Ma'am, the environment was informal. I was trying to maintain order. With contempt. Ma. With intimidation? Was sexism dressed as command voice? He flushed darker. Ma. Mantur. Inappropriate is for a typo in a menu. You displayed conduct unbecoming an officer. In front of subordinates, peers, civilians, and senior command. More importantly, you displayed it comfortably. That suggests practice. The Army general stepped slightly to the side, giving Lauren a clear line of sight beyond Mercer. Master-at-Arms detail is positioned outside. Ma. Call them in. The doors near the service corridor opened almost at once. 2 military police officers entered with controlled speed, followed by a senior chief whose expression suggested he had hoped all week that tonight would justify his concerns. Shock rippled through the crowd again. Mercer turned as if the sight itself might be corrected by denial. Lauren said, Lieutenant Grant Mercer, by authority of the Office of the Inspector General, and with senior command concurrence, you are relieved of event responsibility pending formal investigation into abuse of authority, conduct unbecoming hostile workplace behavior, interference with oversight, and possible retaliation related to prior complaints. Surrender your sidearm. Mercer stared at her. Mercer stared at her. Surrender it now. His hands moved at last, slow and suddenly clumsy. The MP received the weapon and stepped back. Lauren shifted her, gaze to the men who had laughed beside him. No. One by one they gave, them voices unsteady. She recognized fear in all 3, remorse in only 1. She memorized that too. Pending review. Lauren said, you are restricted to quarters. Denied informal contact with junior enlisted personnel outside duty requirements, and prohibited from altering any digital, written or supervisory records. Any attempt to coordinate statements, intimidate witnesses, or sanitize your command climate will be treated as additional misconduct. Is that understood? Scattered chorus answered, Yes? Ma. Looter. Looter. She turned toward the room. Petty officer carrying service on the west side. The young woman with the tray startled. Mom, face pale. Lauren softened her tone by a single degree. Were you treated professionally tonight? The woman looked at Mercer, then at the generals, then at the floor. Years of institutional caution fought visibly across her face. Lauren said, "You will answer without fear of reprisal. That protection begins now." The petty officer swallowed. No, Ma. By whom? By whom? A long pause. Then, quiet but clear, Lieutenant Mercer and others. Lauren nodded once. You will provide a full statement before the night. Senior Chief Wallace. Ensure witness support and private intake for any staff member, enlisted member, civilian employee, or contractor who wishes to speak. No chain of command screening. Why? Lauren. Lauren's eyes moved across the ballroom, meeting faces one after another. Some showed embarrassment, some anger, some relief so intense it almost looked painful. The registration woman near the entrance had tears gathered but unshed. A captain at table 6 could not meet Lauren's gaze at all. Another officer, older and silent, looked as if an old suspicion had finally been confirmed in the worst possible way. This reception will continue, Lauren said, but not as a celebration. She stepped toward the stage. Nobody obstructed her. The quartet lowered their instruments. The microphone on the podium was already lit, its small green indicator glowing in the stillness. Lauren set down her water glass, straightened the broken lanyard cord between two fingers, and addressed the room. Some of you are frightened. Some of you are offended this happened in public. A few of you are more offended it happened to the wrong person than that it happened at all. Correct that instinct now. Her voice carried without strain. Years of command had taught her exactly how to fill silence without shouting. Did not come here tonight to be saluted. I came to see what happened when no obvious power required your best behavior. I came to see how this installation treats people who cannot protect themselves with stars, titles, donors, or publicity. Some of you behaved professionally. Too many acted as though dignity were distributed by rank. It is not. The strength of a command is not measured only by readiness reports, training scores, or polished ceremonies. It is measured by what junior people endure in silence, by whether civilians can work without humiliation, and by whether officers correct abuse when ignoring it would be easier. If your excellence requires fear, your excellence is counterfeit. Several heads lowered. No one spoke. I heard mockery used as entertainment. I watched staff brace before simple interactions. I saw bystanders choose safety over intervention. That is how corruption normalizes itself. Not only through loud cruelty, but through the quiet permission of everyone who decides this is just how things are. She placed the broken badge on the podium. This lanyard matters because breaking it was easy, casual, and public. That is how abusive cultures advertise confidence. They assume nobody powerful will care. Tonight you learned that assumption is unsafe. The Navy Admiral moved discreetly to one side of the stage, signaling teams already in motion beyond the ballroom. Lauren continued. From this moment forward, records on this base are under preservation order. Complaint files, personnel notes, duty rosters, camera archives, email logs, and supervisory memos will be secured. If you buried or retaliated against a complaint, prepare to explain that decision under oath. A ripple passed through the officers clustered near the back wall. If you have been mistreated here, this is not the end of your risk, but it is the end of your isolation. You will have channels outside the chain. That failed you. Use them. If you stayed silent because you thought nobody above cared, somebody does. If you joined the cruelty because it bought belonging, understand this. The bill has arrived. Mercer stood under MP watch near the pillar where he had first confronted her. The color had not returned to his face. Lauren did not point at him. She no longer had to. He had become an exhibit built from his own words. Military honor is not a slogan for retirement speeches. It is a discipline practiced when the person in front of you appears too small to matter. Leadership is not domination. Toughness is not humiliation. Elite status grants no moral exemption. Every time someone here treated decency as weakness, they disgraced the uniform. She looked at the younger faces first, to the junior officers and enlisted members in this room. Remember this night accurately. Not as theater, but as proof that command climate is the air people breathe around you. You help poison it, or you help keep it clean. Then she shifted to the senior personnel. If you have protected talent at the expense of character, your accounting starts now. Winning missions does not erase rotten leadership. She stepped away, then back once more. If a person must display stars to receive simple human respect in your command, then you failed long before any inspector arrived. The silence that followed felt different from the earlier shock. It held recognition now, and fear, and the thin beginning of relief. Lauren nodded to Senior Chief Wallace. Almost immediately, discreet side rooms were opened for statements. The registration staff were escorted not out, but forward. Council personnel arrived. The event planners who had spent hours polishing glassware suddenly found themselves witnessing something far rarer than ceremony. Institutional accountability beginning in real time. Lauren descended from the stage. The Marine General joined her first. We've sealed the admin wing and communications hub, he said quietly. No data movement without authorization. Good. Commanders en route from the residence. He has not been briefed beyond urgent presence required. Lauren glanced toward Mercer. He'll hear enough when he arrives. As she crossed the ballroom, the young petty officer stepped aside to let her pass, then stopped. Mama? Lauren turned. The woman held her tray with both hands so tightly, her knuckles whitened. Thank you. Lauren considered her for a moment. Don't thank me yet. Give your statement. Tell the whole truth. Then help the next person do the same. The petty officer nodded, eyes shining with something steadier than fear. Near the entrance, the registration woman who had been scolded over the parking tag straightened when Lauren approached. Mom, I have records, she said in a rush, as if speed could outrun second thoughts. Emails. Notes. Things people told me not to. Lauren answered. Then tonight was worth the trouble. She motioned Wallace over and watched the woman get escorted somewhere safe before another hesitation could stop her. Mercer spoke once as the MPs prepared to move him. Ma'am, I have served honorably. Lauren faced him. Then tonight should grieve you more than it scares you. He had no answer for that either. Outside the ballroom, the base had fallen into the stillness that visits large installations after formal events. Flags moving in dark wind, distant engines from another world. Inside, the investigation widened by the minute. Mercer was not the disease. He was proof of an environment healthy enough for him to flourish and sick enough to reward it. One of the generals offered to bring her a fresh badge. Lauren looked down at the snapped lanyard still resting in her hand. "No," she said. "This one will do." The Navy admiral almost smiled.
Evidence?
Walked back through the room one last time before the commander arrived. Not as bait now, but as the officer she had been all along. Conversation ceased when she passed. People stood straighter. Lauren did not mistake fear for transformation. Character would take longer. At the far end of the ballroom, a junior lieutenant who had laughed earlier stepped out from the wall, voice shaking. "I should have said something." Lauren stopped. "Why didn't you?" He stared at the floor. "Because he always wins." She held the young man's silence until he was forced to hear his own answer. "Not always," she said. "Not anymore. Decide which part of this command you intend to become." He nodded once, ashamed enough to learn, which was more than she could say for some older men in finer metals. When the base commander finally entered under escort, confusion on his face hardening into disbelief as he took in MPs, separated witnesses, and Mercer disarmed near the pillar, Lauren was ready with facts, not spectacle. She briefed him in clipped sequence. Whether his ignorance had been genuine or curated would be determined later. By 2200, the reception had become an intake center. By 2300, the first written statements filled folders on a guarded table. Shortly after midnight, Lauren looked through the corridor glass at the room where masks had come off. Witnesses were being heard. The young petty officer was speaking to an investigator. Mercer sat alone. Under watch, no entourage or laughter left. Lauren checked her watch. Then her notes. The mission had begun as planned and unfolded better than planning ever. Abuse had revealed itself without coercion. Arrogance had testified freely. She closed the notepad and slipped it back into her pocket. She knew the reports would multiply before dawn. Some would be clumsy, some incomplete, some written by people still afraid their signatures could ruin them. None of that mattered. Fear had lost its monopoly tonight. Once truth starts moving through a command, even polished walls cannot keep the sound from traveling any farther. Somewhere behind her, footsteps approached and halted. The Marine general said, "Long night ahead, Mom." Lauren looked once more through the glass. "Good," she said. "Let it be longer for the ones who made it necessary."